So this is going to be an interactive session for all of the attendees out there. We will have some poll questions so that you can have your voice heard in a few parts here as we go through. And then, of course, we have the Q&A module there on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. We're going to get started, I think, Kevin, with the first survey question. So here we go, everybody. How many Macs are in your environment? You can just easily click on one of the three choices there on the right-hand side. Is it less than 50, or is it somewhere between 50 and about 250, or is it more than 250? Many of you are probably on this call because you have an increasing number of Macs in your environment. So let's see what people type in there. And Nathan, our concierge, if you can give me a heads up whenever we start to see some results coming in.
And Phil, we have results.
Thank you, sir. All right, about 80% of you, so it's less than 50. So again, Kevin, I'm suspecting that a lot of these folks are joining the conversation because they probably had 10 Macs in the environment a couple years ago, and now it's maybe 20 or 30, and their end users are probably hitting them up with more and more requests for Mac. So I think you are all in the right place because we're going to talk about things like zero-touch deployment. We're going to talk about this thing called DEP that some of you may not be familiar with. So we will advance the slide here and go to a bit of information about SHI and how we help. But first, just a quick word about me. I'm the General Manager of Sales here at SHI, and I'm so thrilled to be sitting next to my friend Kevin English. Because, Kevin, you and your team, y'all are the ones that get your hands dirty with this zero-touch deployment, and DEP and SHI have a pretty special history, correct?
That's exactly right. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Kevin English. I'm the Director of Mobility at SHI. Been at the company for about 10 years, but in mobile for about 7, right? Right on the backs of iPad 1, we were one of 3 to be able to release iPads to business customers. The first thing we realized is that the more we helped customers secure, manage, and deploy their iOS devices, the number of those devices increased. So we've been doing zero-touch deployment type services for that entire 7 years. Prior to DEP, we were deploying images over the air for large customers in the enterprise space, right? So we knew very much how important it was to have DEP-like solutions to help manage Apple devices. We were the first enrolled in DEP. We were the first reseller with the most DEP devices under management, and we're still. So we have a little bit of IP around that DEP process, but we're going to get into that in a little more detail during this call. It's very normal to see that 80% or so, the poll results show that 50 or so Macs reside in your environment, right? And again, the more you can control and manage and secure these devices, the more proliferation of Mac you'll see.
So we heard a lot of firsts there, Kevin. You know, first organization, SHI, that is, the first organization to get into DEP. We've been doing it for 7 years. We do a lot of things really well, and we can help in every part of a company's IT environment. So just again to share a bit about SHI and how we help organizations. You know, we are an $8 billion organization. We have size, we have scale, we have a lot of helpful people. For me, the value of SHI comes down to our portfolio and our account management, what we sell, and then, in other words, how we do it. Kevin, which of these items up here do you think is most relevant to our conversation today around Apple?
Exceptional people. Our CEO has brought a culture that allows each one of our sales reps to be accountable for their own business and for their own customers. And for that reason, we go above and beyond for all of our customers, even fighting the battles with Apple that you may not be able to fight individually, right? So for economies of scale, us being one of the largest Apple partners in North America, we have a direct link to the Wizard of Oz that is behind Apple that makes some of the decisions, right? So I would say the exceptional people is the piece I'm most excited about on this slide.
Right on. All right, we can advance to the next slide here. Keep it moving with our second survey question. This is important. Are you using a device management solution? are you using a device management solution? Kevin, sometimes the nomenclature for this can be a bit confusing, right? There's MDM, there's EMM. So how do you make sense out of all of those different TLAs or three-letter acronyms?
Sure. So the industry started off with MDM, with the normal sort of AirWatch, Mobile Iron, Mass 360, Good, as well as Jamf, right? And they did very basic features, so remote wipe of corporate data only. As the market matured, EMM became the moniker used for these management platforms, and they do a lot more now. They do a lot more around app deployment. So that's why the acronym has changed, but it's all real the same thing. So we did want to get a view of how many of you guys are currently using MDM solutions before we turn it over to one of our favorite MDM or Apple Device Management Solutions, and that is Jamf out of Minnesota.
Wow. So 42% are not using something. And man, this, for me, everything in this business comes down to process. We need a process. All of you on the call, you need a process for, in this case, managing, procuring, and deploying and managing your Macs. And what we're going to hear from Jamf is exactly that. So everybody that's listening to this call, you have an opportunity going forward to either create your own management process, which can be very cumbersome and challenging, or you can just hop on board somebody else that already has that process built out, and Jamf definitely has that process built out. So, Jonah, my friend, are you out there, sir?
We are here.
Excellent. Well, take it away. Let's see what we can get into on the Jamf side of things.
Sounds good. And Phil, Kevin, SHI, on behalf of all of Jamf, thanks for having us here today. Looking forward to the conversation and getting some dialogue started with the people on the line. So my name is Jonah Clevisol. I've been with Jamf for coming up on 10 years now, and I'm on our alliances team, and I get to work with our strategic partners and key resellers on really helping move the Apple message out to the masses. My tag says enterprise, but I work with businesses of all size to help them kind of just realize choice in their environment and the benefits that can come from that.
Hi, my name is Jason Liebel. I've been with Jamf for about 6 years. I worked in different technical roles here. Currently, I'm a system engineer for our channel partners, specifically with SHI to help show what our software can do, how it can help Apple in the enterprise, and make successful workflows, especially around user choice.
Awesome. Always feel better to present with an SE at my side, so thanks for being here, Jason. So today, go ahead.
Jonah, I was just going to say, man, you're a brave soul putting your email address up there, Jonah@Jamf. We have, almost 300 people on the call, so you might get blown up a little bit later in the afternoon here, brother, but Godspeed.
All right, I would welcome that. So real quick today, what we're going to do at the time we're spending with everyone this morning is I want to talk a little bit about Jamf as a company and as a product. I think, again, we're introducing a lot of new terms, MDM, EMM, DEP, VPP, all that fun stuff. I want to talk a little bit about who we are and kind of what we do for the Apple community. Talk a little bit about why choice in general. Why are companies looking at it today? How are they being successful with it? And why is it relevant to everybody on the line? And then kind of the technical piece is going to be how Jamf and SHI enable you to allow choice in your environment and let your employees choose which workstation they want to be the most productive with. We're going to wrap it up a little bit with talking about, I think, kind of a pretty common question folks have when they look at deploying Macs is, what is the TCO? If I switch from Windows to Mac, am I going to see savings? Is it going to be more expensive? I have a nice visual way of talking through that that I'll walk everybody through. And finally, hearing from SHI about an offer that they have and plenty of time for Q&A, as I'm sure and hope that it comes up during this presentation. So first, about Jamf. Those of us who haven't heard of us, we are a 600-person company based out of the Midwest, headquartered in Minneapolis, which, hey, Twins are 2-0. We've been trouncing on the Royals a little bit, so we're feeling pretty good about that, too. But we're here to help companies succeed with Apple. That is our sole purpose. We've been Apple only since the beginning, and it's found a great way of getting good key partners that help us enable this technology in the workplace. About us as a company a little bit, this was at our all-company meeting in January. But right now, we've got a little over 7.5 million devices under management across 10,000 customers, both education, commercial, small, medium business, Fortune 1000. And the best part is 95% of those customers come back to us every year and renew. So that tells me two things. One, our product does what it says that it does, but also one thing I can't really demonstrate is just how good our support is. Our technical account managers spend a lot of time making sure our customers are successful, and that keeps them coming back year over year. Again, 600 employees across 9 global offices. And another kind of neat thing that we've created over the last couple of years is a 40,000 plus community of Apple administrators called Jamf Nation. And you can check it out right now, jamfnation.com. You don't have to be a customer. But if you're looking at deploying Apple devices, specifically Macs in your environment, you have questions. You're wondering, hey, what's going to hurt? What do I need to pay attention to? What have people run into? How have they been successful? You're going to get answers from some of the top admins in the world on that community. So definitely worth checking out if you've got any questions. So let's talk a little bit about Jamf Pro. Jamf Pro is our signature product that does lifecycle management for Macs, iOS devices, and now with the recent release from Apple, tvOS. So if you're looking at using Apple TVs in your environment, Apple's got some great technology in there that they just released that we support to allow you to deploy Apple TVs just as easily as you would a Mac or an iOS device. But really what our product does, and what we mean by lifecycle management, is full stock control and deployment and everything of your system. So everything from the initial deployment to the initial configuration of that device. So a lot of folks right now, they may have a small number of machines of doing things by hand. They think, I don't really need a management solution. Once you see some of the automation features that we have and the technology that Apple enables us to use to really to streamline this process, you're going to see the value pretty quick of, as Kevin and Phil mentioned, having a consistent process. We can deploy applications. It doesn't matter if it's from the App Store or if it's a Homebrew app or if it's Office or Creative Suite. Very easy way of getting that out to your users. We keep very detailed inventory of all the assets that you have. That's definitely not a really shiny and cool-looking thing, but inventory is critical. We can use that to make decisions. Apple gives us really good security tools in macOS, iOS, and tvOS, and Jamf Pro gives you full control over that, everything from full disk encryption to Gatekeeper to all the technologies that Apple has to keep those machines secure. And then finally, what makes us very unique and kind of sets us apart from the other MDM vendors that are out there is our self-service portal, which think of this as a corporate app store that's customized for your users. And we'll walk through that in just a little bit.
And Jonah, this is Phil. A quick question for you. Whenever we look at that, list of capabilities within Jamf Pro, why would a company decide to not use that product?
And Jason backed me up here. I think a lot of this just comes from, well, I'm okay doing it by hand. Maybe there's enough time, or maybe there's that one help desk person that's capable of doing that. But there's kind of a perception of cost that, hey, I'm going to spend a lot of money for a management solution, but we can show you how to really get that back through time and process. And oftentimes, it takes one machine disappearing with corporate IP on there and realizing that it's not encrypted with FileVault to make a management solution very quickly pay for itself.
Right on. Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem. So Jamf Pro, because we've been running as long as we have, we're very enterprise friendly. We have both a cloud or an on-premise solution available. Either is available through SHI, and they can price that out for you depending on which one fits in your environment. As I did mention, we're kind of MDM plus for the Mac. There's a lot of tools out there that do Mac management, and you can't see me air quoting that, but I am. And they do some of the basic configuration profiles, remote wipe, setting up email, setting up Wi-Fi. Because we actually install a binary on the Macs that we manage, we can do so much more with that platform, which really kind of makes us the best product for Mac management out there. But because we're enterprise friendly, we integrate with a lot of the technologies you may already be using today. We rely very heavily on Active Directory, either if you're binding the Macs or if you want to use the Active Directory users and groups you already have to say, hey, this person gets this machine and these applications and these security controls. You set it once and never have to worry about it again. We support a lot of the industry standard single sign-on technologies. And all the inventory data that we gather, we can put into ServiceNow and SCCM and other tools that may be used. So we're very, very enterprise friendly. But mostly, it's deep integration with the Apple deployment programs that we're going to show you in the technical demo in just a moment. So why are we here, and why are we talking about choice? I've had a pretty unique perspective in the 10 years that I've been here, where it used to be, if we support Apple in our environment, to, okay, when are we going to support Apple, to, okay, how? They're here. How are we going to do it? And it's really being driven by this whole model of employee choice, which is letting a user decide, hey, what kind of device would you want to use to be the most productive? And I think we're seeing it a lot on the mobile side. Many companies that we work with are saying, what kind of phone do you want? And we're really seeing that transition over towards the laptops and desktop workstations as well. So some of the data that we've received, PricewaterhouseCoopers last year did a survey on millennials in the workplace. And share that out publicly. It's available. I can get the link after the fact. But we saw some pretty interesting data from this. Like over half the people surveyed said that employers providing technology was an important part of them considering the job. I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that want to walk into their first day on the job and get a 2-year-old Windows laptop that's covered in Cheeto dust and has been used by somebody else for a long time. They want that new machine, and likely they have been using a Mac up until this point. 78% of those surveyed also said that the technology they like to use makes them more effective, and that's a big piece. If a user's productive, it's a better value for the business. I think we can all agree on that. So we decided to do our own survey at Jamf. We actually worked with a third-party company, and I believe, I don't remember the total number, but we surveyed around 500 different organizations of all different sizes in the commercial space. And what we found in the responses is that 91% of those businesses are supporting Macs in some form or another. They may not have full choice programs, but there's a good chance, and they came back and said, yep, we definitely have a Mac or 2 or a dozen or 100 in our environment, and we support those and we're cool with that. And one piece of data that was no surprise to anybody at this point in time is that 99% of those businesses are currently supporting iOS, so iPhones or iPads. The next question we asked is, well, are you growing that number? Do you see that number changing? And 3/4 of those surveyed said that they're actually going to see growth, or they're currently seeing growth in the Macs in their environment today, and pretty much the same number on mobile. So these devices are out there. And those on the line that may be thinking, this seems kind of new and scary, there's a lot of companies that have done this already, and we can certainly help you get connected with those folks as well.
And Jonah, if it's cool, we might want to take a quick pause in the action here. We're getting some questions on the Q&A module, and thought we could just talk through a couple of them.
Yeah.
Question here around sales guys. So one of the attendees is asking, hey, we have sales guys that use Mac out in the field. How easy is it to get them on this without having their laptops in-house? So for Jonah or even for Kevin, if y'all want to address that one.
And Kevin, I can take this if you want. It's actually very simple. What I'm going to show you is the automated zero-touch way. But yeah, a big question we get is, well, I've already got devices out there. They basically go to a web URL, which is essentially the enrollment page on your Jamf server. They log in with their directory credentials, and their machine becomes managed. It's that simple.
Cool. Thank you for that. Next question, Jonah. Does Jamf Pro have a remote wipe option, in case a computer needs to be wiped remotely?
Yeah, we certainly do. And it's not a proprietary technology at all. It's using what's built into Apple, and I've definitely tested. I've had SEs tested on me before. It is fast, and it basically removes the encryption key from that volume, so that data is gone. And we also, one of the nice things is we see the verification from Apple that command was sent. So if a salesperson leaves a laptop in a cab or in an airport someplace with all your forecast numbers on it, they can call IT, hey, I left my laptop in the airport. IT can immediately wipe that device and have the confidence knowing that command was sent and that device was actually wiped.
I am a sales guy. I have left my laptop in a cab. It's not a pretty situation. Another question around just the agenda for this conversation. We will be talking about additional technology towards the end around backup for Mac products. All right, well, cool. I think it's a decent pause. Thank you for letting us do that, Jonah. And sorry to interrupt your flow, but we can continue on now, sir.
No problem. I appreciate the questions. So we talk about companies that are far down this choice path and have kind of taken it upon themselves. And one of the best stories that I can share is actually from IBM, specifically Fletcher Previn, the VP of IT over there. They offered a choice program back in 2015. That's when they opened it up to their company of 400,000 plus global employees. And since 2015, they've deployed over 100,000 Macs in their environment. They're doing 1,000 to 1,200 enrollments a week in their environment, which actually makes them the world's largest Mac deployment, even larger than Apple. So we think that's pretty telling that the inventor of the personal computer is allowing their users to choose, and those users are choosing to use Mac. And from that choice offering, there's been some other data that's come out from IBM that I think is very compelling. Fletcher presented last year at our user conference, and again, we can share this link out. It's a pretty interesting presentation to see how they did this. But they're saving anywhere from $273 to $543 per Mac over a comparable Windows device in their 4-year TCO model. So Fletcher actually has a quote that he says that every Mac we deploy makes and saves the company money. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that every organization is going to see these kinds of savings, but it's definitely food for thought. If you look at the initial acquisition cost of a Mac being higher than a Windows machine, there are ways to get that money back, and we're going to talk through that in just a little bit. The other thing that Fletcher learned through simply help desk ticket amounts and the size of people he has supporting both those platforms, they actually discovered, IBM found out that it's 3 times more expensive to manage a Mac, 3 times more expensive to manage a PC than it is a Mac. So again, we look at that TCO number and we look at kind of getting past that hurdle of cost to implement choice, and these things can actually pay for themselves pretty quick. And finally, last year, they did another survey just to see, hey, of all the employees at IBM, what kind of machine would you want? And that number is now up to 73% of the employees within IBM are going to be switching to Mac at their next refresh cycle, which is a pretty amazing number to see.
And Jonah, to that point here, before we get on to the next poll, another question came in from an attendee saying that we're trying to go all Mac at our office. So it's totally in line with that 73% number. I mean, the end user demand is so strong for Apple right now. So they had some questions around, I think it was
a cloud offering from Jamf. Jonah, can you talk a little bit about your cloud offering?
Yeah, certainly. So it's hosted on Amazon. We've got data centers in both the U.S. and Europe. It's really just we manage all of the back-end stuff for you. So we do the updates and the upgrades. We do performance tuning. All you have to do is basically log in and use the management console from there. We also include cloud-based file distribution services with that as well. So you can get applications and data and content to your users no matter where they are in the world.
Excellent. Thank you. Just a quick point of order as it relates to the agenda for some folks who are hopping on a couple minutes late. Everybody just know that we are going to talk in more detail about really the distinctions between DEP and the Jamf process. We're going to have screenshots and get pretty detailed on how those two things are related, but also and how they're different. But next, it is I believe our final poll question, because procurement is part of the process. And I said earlier, that everything is process. So it does help our overall conversation if everybody considers where they're starting their process. So where are you currently buying your Apple products? Is it from Apple Retail? Is it from SHI? Hey, that'd be great. Is it from a different reseller? Or do you just simply not know where the Macs are coming from, but somehow magically they're just appearing in your environment? So we'll give you all about another 15 seconds to answer that. So where are you currently buying your Apple products? Is it Apple Retail? Is it SHI? Is it other reseller? Or do you not know? And then let's see, Nathan, if you could show us the results here. We'll get a glimpse into where people are buying their current Apple products. Other reseller, SHI, and then Apple Retail, about 25% of them. So it's about what I suspected, Kevin and Jonah. But that does dovetail, Jonah, into your next point. If you want to carry on.
Exactly. So enough data. I want to spend a couple minutes here actually talking about how Jamf and SHI can help your organization enable choice, or simply just deploy more Macs in your environment. And that's through some really just amazing technology that Apple has put into their operating system over the last few years. So let's start with the way we're doing things today, what we call the traditional provisioning workflow. And I'm guessing that we probably could have done a survey question for this, but I'm guessing probably 90% of the people on the line are doing this today. Where they purchase a machine from SHI or Apple Retail or the I don't know retailer, I know that one too. IT receives the machine and they probably load an image on it, right? So there's somebody that's maintaining that image, or you kind of use one master machine you're running updates on, and that's cool. And then that machine may sit for a day or a week or a month because the user hasn't started yet, or maybe they took some vacation right after they joined. But it kind of sits around for a little bit until it actually gets delivered to the user. And when it gets delivered to the user, there's probably 15 minutes to 30 minutes of updates you have to do. And it's kind of some hand-holding for that user to make sure that when Jason gets his machine, he can be a productive systems engineer right away on day one. And there's nothing wrong with this workflow. This is the way we've been doing it for years, and there's great technology out there to smooth this process out. But Apple has a better way. And Apple has something called, if you're not familiar with it yet, the Device Enrollment Program, or DEP for short. I'll try to use Device Enrollment Program so we don't get acronym chaos here. But what makes this very different is this is a technology from Apple that is baked into every single device essentially created since 2011. And what this is it allows SHI to ship a machine directly to your user or directly to your office, or rather than going to a deployment depot, go out to your corporate headquarters or one of your field offices, or even better, directly to your field sales guy's house. The user does 100% of the setup on their own. And before you freak out and think, oh, I don't want my user setting things up, this is all automated and completely controlled by you because you're using Jamf. We're taking advantage of this program to automatically configure a machine for you, for your end user, consistently through good process every single time. So I'll walk you through that. Those of you on the line who have set up a Mac before, this is going to look very familiar, but we really believe in kind of the Apple philosophy is it all starts in the box, right? Those of you who have unboxed and opened your own machine versus getting one handed to you by IT, there's tons of data out there that shows the ownership that comes from that unboxing experience. That employee takes better care of the machine, it lasts longer, and it has a higher resale value at the end of its life. But here at Jamf, this is actually a picture we took of our CEO's machine when he started. Step 1 is open box. Step 2 is power on Mac. And step 3, there is no step 3, love IT. And that's all enabled through the device enrollment program. So typically, as you would, you open up the machine, you select your region, you select your keyboard, because you got to do that. And then really all you have to do as an end user is choose your wireless network, because obviously this requires internet to work. The only thing that's different, if you set up a Mac on your own before at home, is this screen right here where it says this Mac will be automatically configured by Jamf software. Now there's all kinds of technical wizardry that's going on in the background, but I'll keep it short. Essentially what's happening is SHI has registered your Mac as being owned by your company. When that machine turns on, as every Mac does, it registers with Apple and says, hi, I'm this machine. Apple says, hi, machine. Well, it looks like you're owned by this company, so I'm going to point you to this management server. There's no URL the user has to enter. There's nothing they have to remember. This happens completely automatically. And as you can see, there is no cancel or skip button on this either. So it's a nice way of making sure that machine is set up perfectly every time. I mentioned support earlier for Active Directory. In this example, we're having one of our users log in with their Active Directory credentials. We're not binding the Mac to Active Directory, which you may have heard of. It's not a requirement really anymore. But what's happening here is Nick, our marketing guy, is logging in, and based on who he is, that determines how his machine is going to be set up. So another way to look at the device enrollment program is you can ship an entire fleet of MacBooks out to your field salespeople, and based on where they are, who they are, that determines how the machine is set up. You don't have to do custom builds for people. You don't have to worry about sending the wrong machine with the wrong software load to the wrong person. This is all handled automatically. A next step is creating a local account for that user, which is an optional process. And then from here, everything else looks like it normally would if they were setting up the Mac on their own. They're greeted with a desktop here with one minor little change, and that's a notification saying, hey, just want to let you know we're installing some software and security settings. Check out self-service for more resources. Love IT. And we have a very friendly IT department here, as they all should be. But the user can basically start getting to work right now. Their machine is set up. It's configured for the corporate network. It has VPN access. The mail client's configured. There's no follow-up phone call to IT to say, okay, hey, great. Now what do I do? Or I need this particular application, because this has all been handled by that enrollment process. So there's, again, some technical wizardry going on here and some more acronyms to introduce you guys to. When we talk about installing software and security settings, we're not doing anything proprietary here. We are using Jamf to take advantage of the existing tools that Apple gives us. So we've wirelessly provisioned the machine, as you saw, but now we're installing software and applying security settings. The software can come from applications that you've built, and we have a tool to help you build custom installer packages, or it's likely coming from the App Store. Apple's given us a great tool called the Volume Purchase Program, or VPP for short, that lets you automatically deploy apps and even does pretty much most of the licensing legwork for you. So you can distribute applications to your end users without requiring an Apple ID, which is a huge component. If you'd wrestled with that in the past, just be aware that the volume purchase program no longer requires an Apple ID to be entered by the user in order to receive that application. We're also applying security settings. So maybe we want to turn on File Vault for full disk encryption. Maybe we want to configure Gatekeeper from Apple to only allow users to open up applications from approved vendors. Great way of kind of keeping malware from spreading on the machine. But really, the file piece that's cool is this is all done with the Jamf binary. So this is where we get into that MDM plus model, where it's not just the profiles, it's everything else we can do with the binary. So the machine's fully configured, the user's ready to go, but maybe they want something else, or maybe we want to continue this choice model to let the user decide, hey, what other applications do they need? And this is where self-service from Jamf comes in. And if you're not using Jamf today, you haven't seen this before, this is definitely one of the technologies we're the most proud of. So we go back to the user's desktop here. We have the notification. Actually, in this particular case, the crash plan is now available in self-service. Kevin and Phil are going to talk about that in a little bit. But hey, we're letting the user know there's a new application for you. Now, as an IT administrator on the line, you don't have to do this process if you want. You can automatically deploy. But we found much higher user satisfaction and fewer help desk tickets if you let the user do it on their own. So we get the notification, and then they can launch self-service. This is basically modeled after the App Store itself, where most users are familiar with this. They go, they can find stuff, things are categorized for easy content locating. But this is how they can install applications, they can modify settings, they can add content, we can configure email, Wi-Fi, add printers, VPN, all these things that instead of sending out a list of instructions, you can have a user click one single button and have it automatically configured. Things are easy to find, to divide up by category. We can simplify a lot of the common workflows. So putting out HR manuals, for example, and also having the audit trail to know the user actually received that and looked at it is very helpful. And then most importantly, when we get to kind of this lower cost model option for the Mac, is running common maintenance tasks. What we have, and this is actually our Jamf production self-service instance here, you can see the easy button there, that's just maintenance. Think of all the times you get a phone call from your user, my Mac is running slow, or this app isn't working, or I can't print. You can bundle all that up into one easy thing for the user to click on that does that Tier 0 and Tier 1 support for you before they call. This particular one actually restarts the machine as well, which, as we all know, kind of fixes most issues that people run into. But as an end user, I'm doing this on my own. I feel empowered. I don't have to bother IT. I don't have to interrupt my day to wait for somebody to call me back. I can fix my machine on my own. And the most important part to consider with all this is that I don't have to be a local administrator to do any of this. Self-service allows me, as a non-admin user, to do things like install applications and run maintenance tasks. So if you're looking at a very high security environment or you don't want your users to be local admins, self-service enables that to work without the user having to be an admin.
And Jonah, it's Phil. I have a quick question I want to get into the conversation. It is, how many devices are required for somebody to take advantage of DEP and Jamf?
There is no minimum floor. We have seen customers with as few as 5 devices and up to 100,000 plus devices that use us. Really what it is, especially if you've got people that are remote, this DEP workflow is amazing. If you've got people that are in different states, you don't want to wait for them to come back into the office, or you don't want to ship a machine from SHI to your office, set it up, and then ship it back out. You can FedEx it right to that user's door. They open it up and set it up on their own. So if that's valuable to you, if your time is valuable, Jamf will pay for itself very quickly by streamlining that process. So we really don't have a minimum floor for the number of devices that are required.
Cool. Thank you for that. And for the participants, just know that we are seeing all of the questions. They are being logged, and you will get an answer to all of these. But just in the spirit of time, we're not able to get to every one of them. We're seeing some other really cool questions on, local profiles, Active Directory sync, things like that. So just rest assured your questions will be answered. But we have, I think, just 2 more main topics that we wanted to cover here in the allotted time. So, but Jonah, back to you, sir.
And Jason just perked up knowing there's some technical questions coming too. So we're definitely going to be happy to answer those. So
thank you.
How does this all tie back in? So we talk about the need for a process and a need for a workflow. We talked about the fact that there's a desire for these Mac devices to be in environments. And we talked about how we can automate this process to really make deployment and management of these things very streamlined, and which means a lot less expensive. So let's look at it in a slightly different way, because in all these conversations that I've had, generally the first kind of objection that I hear, the first challenge I get is, well, Macs are expensive. We can't do it because it's going to be too expensive. Well, we had some great data from IBM, as well as a couple of large retailers here in Minneapolis and many of our other customers. And I kind of created a different way of looking at where the Mac can stack up against an equivalent Windows machine in your environment. So let's take a look. For example, both platforms require a certain level of base services, right? There are people that measure power, so we'll include that in there. We'll need an Office license. We'll probably need a CAL for Active Directory. And then we need some way of getting files out and software out to your users. That's a cloud file service or an existing infrastructure you already have. So base service, common across both. And then we get to the hardware and essential software. Now, I will agree for sake of argument that typically if you go price out a brand new 15-inch MacBook Pro Touch Bar, it's going to be a little more expensive than an equivalent Windows machine. Which is why I have a 13-inch now instead of a 15-inch. But when you start to look at what comes with that bundle, the Mac will come with deployment process and software built in through DEP and VPP, those programs I talked about. It comes with built-in antivirus. It comes with built-in full disk encryption, and all the OS updates are free. And on the Windows side, you have to buy a particular version of Windows to get full disk encryption. You absolutely need to buy an antivirus solution, and there's probably a different deployment model or a different deployment product you're going to need as well. And we can argue a little bit, hey, we get Windows for free or AB is bundled from our vendor, and that's cool. But again, for sake of argument, just kind of building the stack out and try to make it a little more visual. We have a management solution in order to take advantage of all these technologies. Jamf, obviously, on the Mac side. We most commonly see Intune and SCCM on Windows. And again, I know some people that get SCCM for free with their license, but even if you take that out, we're starting to see some parity here between the Mac and the Windows machine. And then we get to the support side. So looking at the amount of staff required to support an equivalent amount of Macs versus Windows machines, how large the help desk needs to be, and the volume of tickets, there's a lot of data out there about that. Fletcher talked about that from IBM, and that's where that 3 times number comes with from IBM for the cost model between the two. But Macs traditionally require a smaller number of staff and a tighter help desk and less of a help desk to support those end users. So I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to see $200 to $500 in savings. You may, but really the point of this slide is to look at the technology that Apple gives us, using a solid management solution, cutting down on help desk tickets, and cutting down on deployment process and overall cost. We've seen most companies that have sat down and looked at this see either lower cost of ownership for the Mac or on par compared to Windows, which takes the cost model kind of out of the picture and helps us get moving and helps us get implementing. So Kevin and Phil, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm excited to show this next slide with everybody, but I wanted to give you guys a moment of transition here.
We are ready. Let's do it, sir. As we go to this next slide, and we're talking about money and pricing. I did see a question on the Q&A panel on, price breaks and different pricing tiers depending on quantity. Right question to ask, and your SHI account executive can turn around, those quotes and answer those questions very quickly. So I encourage everybody out there that has price and cost structure on their mind to please reach out to your SHI account executive, and they are there to help. I think this offer, Kevin, is here to help a lot of people potentially, as it's a bundle of really everything that an organization would need, everything that an end user would need for $49 per device per month, if you want to explain this one really quick.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Phil. So again, another first for SHI, we were first out on device as a service as it pertains to iPad. So we did and still have an iOS solution that is monthly reoccurring at $35 per month for an iPad and some additional services. But now as it pertains to the Mac, we've come up with this solution. So $49 per month per user per device, you'll be able to get a MacBook Pro 13-inch with AppleCare protection. This is a 36-month utility lease. It also includes the Jamf device management that Jonah just so eloquently went through, and a Code 42 backup solution, right? This is the backup solution that Apple actually uses in-house, Cisco uses in-house, and is the more enterprise version of an iCloud backup strategy.
And why would that need to be included in this?
Generally speaking, when someone is migrating from a Windows machine or from a Mac machine, you're going to want to back up their data, right? Cloud42 does that in a very elegant way, seamlessly and automatically in the background. So you never have to worry about where your last backup was, right? So we think that this is the bundle that can allow you to accurately manage and deploy and secure your Mac environments in the most efficient manner. So we've come up with this 36-month option. As you all know, Apple does not provide roadmaps, so we don't know when the new Mac Pro is going to come out. Especially when you're customer-facing and you have sales reps in the field, you want them to have the latest and greatest technology because it says a lot about your company, it says a lot about your brand. So this also allows you to do refreshes throughout that 36-month period and still have the latest and greatest technology all managed, secured, and deployed through these technologies that we discussed.
I mean, I'm probably going to spend at least $49 at Chick-fil-A later this afternoon.
Totally.
It is a great price point that we're able to offer. We are at SHI. We are proud of our ability to offer a solution like that for $49 per device per month on that 3-year lease. Another question rolling in regarding an iMac solution bundle. SHI does, in fact, have a solution for that side as well. A couple other questions on the costs if we were to do this on the 15-inch, some other things like that. Your SHI account executive has all of those price points, and they're happy to talk all of you through that.
Absolutely, Phil. So as you see here, this is the bundle that we've come up with, but it's not hard and fast, right? This can be customized based on the machine that you're looking for, based on the type of options you have. And there's other things that we can put into this utility model, which is, in fact, a lease, right? We can be as little or as much of an extension of your IT department as you would like us to be. So, for instance, if you wanted us to totally manage these devices turnkey, we also have partnerships with a great help desk company that can do all of the work for you on all iOS devices. So don't think this is the only bundle that you're able to get. We just think that this is the most common that you'll need. But really appreciate everybody joining here today. I'm going to turn it back over to Phil just to close us out.
Excellent. All right, everybody. I do appreciate everyone's participation. Any other questions that you might have or feedback for us here at SHI, please reach out to your account executive, and they will help you out as always. Thank you. Godspeed, folks. Bye-bye.